Hey everyone, welcome to another event session. I'm Julika.
And I'm Riza. We're excited to welcome Jessica Summers today. She's a wife, mother, advocate, and overcomer whose journey has been filled with both challenges and incredible strength. Through it all, Jessica continues to inspire others with resilience, faith, and a heart to serve. We're honored to have her here with us today. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you.
Jessica, for those that are going to meet you for the first time listening to this, how would you describe who you are today?
That's difficult. So I'm actually in grief therapy right now because I am not who I was 2 years ago. And I'm not who I was when Jolika originally met me. So I am a disabled adult who is taking care of her family as best as I can, and dealing with the complications of rare disease and disorders that are new to the world. And doctors that don't fully understand it. I also am an advocate for families, especially those impacted by autism and ADHD, as well as other complex medical conditions that need a little bit of additional support. Before, I was a single mom who worked way too many hours a week, but now I am married and I have two children, and I work when I can as best as I can, and then sometimes I just rest.
And yes, we've known each other, I think it's going on 11 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we both worked at Children's Developmental Services Agency when I first moved to Charlotte, and we made that connection. It was really nice to just develop that friendship. I remember even babysitting for her when she was starting to date. And now her oldest is like in college, which I'm like, she was what, 6? Or
Yeah, she was 6 or 7.
yeah.
Yeah, so she is 18, she's in college, and then I also have a 6-year-old. So, it's crazy, we've been to baby showers and weddings.
So you wear so many hats. Like you said, you're a wife, you're a mom, you're an advocate, entrepreneur to help others with diagnoses and just overcome so much in your life. So which role has shaped you the most? I know that's a hard question.
Yeah, I think every role has played a part in it. Like, becoming a wife, I had to learn how to depend on somebody else. Becoming a mom, I had to, like, learn how to instill my beliefs and my, values in children who are 13 years apart, and then working, you learn how to deal with people, you learn who you don't wanna deal with, and becoming an entrepreneur, like, I have created a group of people who we vet each other and we vet who we let into our small circle because they're truly people who want to help other families. Unfortunately, in our world, when you talk about children with different abilities or disabilities, however you feel like calling it, there's people out there that try to do it for the money. And it's hard. It's hard as a parent. Your kid gets diagnosed with something and you're like, oh no, I need to do everything,
Yeah.
and so you hire all these people, you throw money into everything, and then half the time the therapies don't work or whatever, you try isn't what you were hoping for. I mean, I knew what I was getting into when I had a preemie baby and I was still scared to death. I'm still going to weird doctors like, hey, do you think I need this therapy that's off the charts because maybe it will prevent her from having what I have later in life? And they're like, you need to calm down. They're trying to catch you. They're trying to get your money.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, it's hard. Unfortunately, a lot of people prey on parents, and I hope that that's something that I can help with. Yeah.
And Riza, she has a school for children that are the majority on the spectrum,
The
Riza?
the majority are on the spectrum.
Okay.
If not diagnosed with ADHD, they are autistic. So,
Okay.
uh,
Awesome.
the majority are, yeah, and then we have therapists in the building. So I understand where you're coming from.
We will need to talk because my future endeavor may benefit you.
I would love to hear about it. And there was something that you said that stood out to me because you said it's like it's easy for people to prey on, your child when they come looking for supposed solutions. And as a parent, just imagine us as adults, when somebody brings a
Mhm.
solution to us for our issue, we're quick to run for it. So when it's your child, I can imagine that you would give everything that you possibly have to prevent unforeseeable future or something drastic to happen to your child in the future. So I can definitely see that happening.
Well, and unfortunately, so I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos. And unfortunately, there is now a group that's profiting on us and saying that we need specific therapies that we don't. They target the pain, all of the things like we can fix it. And so, unfortunately, they do then also try to prey on your children or encourage you to do genetic testing that's not necessarily going to benefit you for your child. And that's kind of what I'm dealing with now is all of these groups saying that their physical therapy is better or their view of what's going on is better or this random therapy that you've never heard of is a cure-all. And people are throwing their money when they're disabled and can't work towards
Yeah.
this and then not getting any better. And so, I've been an advocate when I take my daughter to therapy of like, when are we going to be done? What
Mhm.
is our end goal? How will we know when therapy is going to be over? And that's kind of my litmus test as far as like, are you in this for the money? Or are you in this to help my child?
Yeah.
And if you can tell me an end goal, like I have Ehlers-Danlos for the rest of my life, I'm probably going to be in and out of physical therapy forever. But what's the end goal today? Like, what's the end goal for this phase? And if they can't give you that, that's a red flag to me.
Yeah. Which it reminds me, like, I have a doctor, and I love that she always says, she's like, "This is the plan, and this is not
Mhm.
I don't want you to be taking this forever," right? Like, "Let's try this for 2 to 3 months, see how it works, and then I want you to be off of it because I don't want you taking all these amount of pills, for the rest of your life." Which I appreciate that because, some doctors are like, "Yep, oh, let's just give you this medicine, not really do any tests, and the expectation is that you're gonna continue taking these," or whatever the case may be, so
Well, and I think I know that I have a good medical team. My doctors ask me who to send their other patients to. So, like, I was actually on a virtual care appointment today, and the doctor I never met before, it was just a quick visit for medicine. And she was like, I see you have EDS. Where should I send my patients to get diagnosed? So, like, she was like, just tell me where to go. So I told her, here's where you go for this, here's where you go for this, here's where you go for this. She's like, thank you. They don't tell us this stuff. So, it's helpful to have doctors that want to learn.
yeah.
Want you to be like in they want you to be a part of the loop of, "Well, I'll send you to this doctor," and then they send you to this doctor, and then they send you here, and that's where they leave you. They leave you in that circle.
Yeah.
So when you find, like you said, you have a medical team that's willing to help you get out of that circle, and
Yeah.
come to a different place about what you're facing, that's a blessing. That's a
Yeah, and
blessing.
Jolika knows. So I was struggling one year when I was working with Jolika, and I knew something was wrong, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I went to 7 endocrinologists between Charlotte and Durham, and it took 7 until they figured out that I had thyroid cancer. Every endocrinologist told me, "Oh, it's just stress. Oh, you're a single mom. Oh, you're worn out." And I was like, "No, it's something more. Like there's something there." And I just like at one point, I think with the Charlotte doctors, I was just like, I'm in the business of firing doctors, so this is an interview. What else are you going to look at? And I'm very grateful that when I came to Duke, I had a doctor and I was like, look, don't look at anything. Just look at me, ask me the questions. Let's go from here. And she was like, well, you have this calcified part on your thyroid. Should we get it checked out? I was like, yep. And so she called me and I was in the parking lot at the CDSA, literally just pulled in and I got the call that I had cancer. And I'm glad I was at work. I'm glad I was surrounded by friends instead of my child. So I had time to process it. That's where like there's gotten things like the chance that she would have called when I was not out at a family's house, when I was
Mhm.
not at my own house, when I wasn't in the office, because I wouldn't want to take that call in the office. I was in the car by myself. I cried. I got out. I found my friends. I cried some more. Like I processed it. And then I had a 30-minute drive home to process how I was going to tell my child. So, like, even just in timing of things, like I find that it, is really important. And even I was thinking about the journey because at church we've been talking about the book of James and how you go through trials and
Well,
they're there to make you stronger. Growing up, I was more so told if I faced anything negative, it was because I did something wrong and I was being punished in a way. That's an old school version of Christianity. So, like, for instance, I got in a car accident in a parking lot at Concord Mills Mall when I was meeting a boy and I didn't tell my parents. And I was told, well, that's because you were doing something that you weren't supposed to,
Wow.
you know?
That's
And
that's
so,
a
like,
I would have said.
Yeah, that's like, how I have had to be very thoughtful in getting my brain out of that and also not telling my own children. I'm like, well, karma. I was thinking about the thyroid cancer, and this past July, I got diagnosed with a rare cancer condition called Gorlin syndrome. I have the even more rare SUFU mutation. So my body does not understand that it shouldn't produce tumors. And some of those tumors then become cancerous. And it
Mm,
makes a lot of sense now. I've had a lot of surgeries in my life for tumors that nobody could make sense of. But I think that I had thyroid cancer, or I think that thyroid cancer could have been a trial to prepare me for this diagnosis, because had I not had cancer before, I think I would have been a lot more freaked out and anxious. Meanwhile, the only thing I was worried about when I heard that was, okay, but what about my kid? Like,
good. Right.
my daughter had a 50% chance of carrying it. Thank goodness she does not have that. But that was my concern. I wasn't worried about the cancer. Been there, done that, like next. But, and I was thinking about it too. Like, I worked with the NICU babies at the CDSA. I had no experience in the NICU. Like, what did I have to do? Like, I had no knowledge. But I worked with those kids. I saw a couple children pass away, unfortunately, but I saw the good cases and the bad cases. And then I had a 30-weeker the day that the world shut down for COVID.
Right.
Like, I could have been worried about so many things, and I wasn't, because I knew what to expect. I was worried about a pandemic and about my baby, but I wasn't worried about the process. I knew what it was like. I'd been in and out of NICUs for
You knew the
years.
questions to ask, you knew,
Right.
which was, and like you said, like sometimes, we are in different situations, and God prepares us in a way sometimes that we don't even know. What season of life are you in right now? And what has God been teaching you? Because I know you mentioned God and just your diagnosis and all that. So what do you feel like you've been learning through this process, this, journey that you're on right now?
I think learning to give up control,
Hmm.
because that's hard for me. I do not like depending on other people. I am a strong, powerful female who does not need anybody's help to do anything in life. And that's not the case. So I am not able to clean my own home by myself. I've had to hire somebody to come at least once a month and then beg my husband to vacuum in between. I am not able to whip up everything from scratch like I used to. That's hard. Being a parent during this phase of life, so I have a child who's 18. I was a young mom when she was growing up. I adopted her from foster care. Biologically, I would have been 21 had I given birth to her. So I was considered a young mom. Now I'm considered, normal aged mom. And now I use a mobility device to get around. So currently I use a rollator, which is a rolling walker. And then I also am having a evaluation for a wheelchair next month, so that hopefully I can go on longer trips, because currently I can last about an hour or two and then I have to go home and rest.
An hour or two in the car, like a car drive?
No, I can only walk around for about an hour or two and then I'm fairly beat. I have dysautonomia as well as EDS, so my muscles are exhausted. And then I also have a circulatory issue and my body just starts to feel lightheaded. Um, that's the that's the simplest way to explain it. So I use this rollator and I'm in a kindergarten classroom on field trips. The amount of questions you get asked is
Yeah.
fun, but my whole thing with her teachers and her is like, it's a device. So we say that this is a tool, not a toy. So that's my
Mhm.
phrase. This is my tool, not my toy. So please don't play with it like a toy. You're welcome to touch it and ask questions, but don't try to sit on it. I had
Mhm.
some kids ask if I can carry their stuff. Nope, nope, not a coat hanger. My own child tries to sit on it. But, just teaching them what's okay and what's not okay, because they're going to eventually see kids with these.
Yeah.
But, I'm not used to, I don't like attention. So I don't like people asking me a bunch of questions in public. I don't like the comments that I get. The amount of times that I've been told, "Oh, you don't look disabled." Like, does that have a look?
Sounds
Please,
ignorant.
please tell me what it should look like, because I would
Right.
love to know. So, and like, for instance, I've applied for disability because unfortunately I am unable to work a full-time job. I do work, but it's not full-time and it probably will not be full-time at least for the next 5 years or so. I've been denied twice because, again, on paper, it doesn't make sense, even though I have all the testing and everything else. They see me and they're like, I mean, you can walk, you're good, you can do work. I mean, realistically, I can for an hour and then I have to go rest for 2 hours. then I can work again for an hour, and then I have to rest for 2 hours. I still have pain flares. And so when I do, I am out for the day. And I explained it to my husband, like, it feels like being trapped in a body that doesn't do what it should do. And I know that there are many people who are worse off than me, but the thought that you're laying there and your brain works and you want to do all of these things, but your body says no
Mm-hmm.
is a very difficult thing to explain to someone who's never experienced that. The closest that a normal person can get would probably be like COVID or the flu when you can't get out of bed for a day or two. But still, it's like, I don't know when it's going to happen. So I can be good today and then tomorrow I can't get out of bed. And to not know, again, goes back to that control piece. To not know what I can and can't do during the week is very difficult for me because I'm a planner. I'm a type A. Everything in my house is planned out. I have a husband who has ADHD, and we'll just say that it's genetic, um, and leave it at that. So there are visual schedules everywhere. We have schedules everywhere. Everything is organized, and I've lost control of some of that organization. So I think God has basically told me this season, you're not in control, and here's why.
And
I
and
also,
surrendering to
yeah,
him and, like, really just leaning on him. He's our help, he's our provider, he's all the things, and sometimes he sometimes he sits us, and sometimes it's like, yeah, like, you're not gonna be the one in control, like you said, like, I feel like for me too, I tend to have that want everything to be a certain way, control, and I've been reminded several times, like,
yep.
"No, ma'am, like, it's me," you know? So
And,
yeah.
leaning this is just my personal opinion, but leaning on God also looks like leaning on the community. Like you said, now you have to actually ask for help, even though you don't feel comfortable asking for help. It doesn't ask for help because you had this span of years where you did everything on your own. You didn't have to ask anybody for help. So there was a long time where you just handled it on your own. So going from handling it on your own to now I have to ask everybody for help and I never know when I'm going to have to ask, but whenever the time comes I have to let my pride down and I have to ask it. So, I mean, what did that transition look like for you?
It looked like a lot of crying and yelling and being angry. Right around the same time that it happened, my husband and I did a marriage group at our church called Reengage. And it was really good. Like, we've done marriage counseling. We got married. We were told that we couldn't have children, got pregnant 2 months later, um, and then had a preemie baby. And then a pandemic hit. So we needed therapy. So we've done therapy on and
Everybody.
off,
Everybody.
right? But, we never really found a therapist that was the right fit. So we did this reengage, and I was like, "Look, we're gonna get a babysitter. We're gonna do, I think it was 8 weeks or 10 weeks, something like that. We'll figure this out." It was more impactful than anything that we've ever done. It was a group of about, there were 3 other couples, 3 or 4, and then there was the leader couple. And so we would go through this book together. We would read it as a couple during the week. We would answer the questions, and then we came together and talked. And it was nice because then we can really understand what other families are also experiencing. And I think to hear that other families were dealing with the same struggles we were was helpful. And it finally fixed some of our communication issues. We are not perfect. We have plenty of communication issues still, but it at least gave us a gateway to where we weren't communicating loudly. We were communicating effectively and efficiently for the most part, unless one of us gets, in a mood or perimenopause or whatever you want to call it.
There's that word.
We we just had a conversation about that word.
So, but that communication piece helped. I found a therapist who has the same diagnoses that I have and uses a mobility device as well. So having someone who has the same lived experience as me, and I don't have to sit there and try to explain what it feels like she already knows, has been helpful. And yeah, just getting angry sometimes. There's plenty of people in the Bible who got angry. So I feel like I am justified. Jesus threw tables, you can be angry. It's okay. And I think that's part of it. And also just, I had to cut out the noise. So when you're going, 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 you don't really address some of the negative relationships or things that are impacting you that you kind of have to put up a front to deal with. But when you don't have any energy, your energy needs to go towards your children, you figure out how to prioritize those. And unfortunately, it does mean some relationships get put on the back burner or are not invested in as much. Cough, cough, Jolika. But I try my best. I do text, but travel is not as important right now for me. Friendships are important, but more so like talking as opposed to doing things together. I do have a couple local friends that I do meet up with occasionally just because I get bored being at home. So,
Mhm. And you're young,
just,
full of
yeah,
life. I'm hearing you tell me what you're facing, but at the end of the day, you're still a woman and you still have desires like a woman does in society. So I can see
yep,
that.
yeah, I still try.
Thank God that you came across somebody that you're able to connect with because you guys share similar difficulties.
Yeah, well, and I think, in 2019, I was independent and working a full-time job, and so we have shift 180. So, yes, my husband is just trying to cope as much as I can. So, having somebody who can relate to what I'm going through, um, and is that kind of on the other side. So we know, at least historically, with EDS and dysautonomia, like you tend to have like flares that last a couple years and then you can get better. Some people get really better and some people get functionally better. And then you can have dips again. It's kind of up and down depending on if you learn how your fatigue is affecting your life or not and what you're able to do with physical therapy and stuff like that. So having her kind of somewhat on the other side, like she's able to work part time, at least lets me know, okay, this worked for this person. Or if I'm wanting to try a therapy or a medication, like, hey, have you taken this? What do you know about this? Thankfully, with social media, there's also Facebook groups for all the different diagnoses, good, bad, or ugly, because let's be honest, moms groups and diagnosis groups are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
You have to weed out the most important information, but it at least helps give you direction and lets you see that you're not the only one with that going on. I went through the same thing when my daughter was born. I had a traumatic birth, not just that it was during COVID, but unfortunately, a nurse decided to threaten me in the OR when I was giving birth. And it triggered just a reminder of having to fight for my oldest in court when she was in foster care, and my body went into fight or flight. So I don't remember most of my daughter's birth. I definitely had some PTSD and postpartum depression, anxiety. Talking to someone about that who had also had something similar was helpful. And I did go through some therapy for that. But just finding someone who has the lived experience that you have can at least help you relate to somebody. And I encourage parents to do that too. When I meet parents that have a child that was just diagnosed with autism or ADHD or a medical diagnosis, like, hey, find another mom. Like, find someone who is 2 years past what you're at. Find somebody who has an adult child now and can tell you, like, it's okay. Like, you can get through this. And, we have our pastors at our church and we talk to them sometimes, but most of them are men and cannot relate to me as much. So I appreciate when I can find a female that I can talk to that has at least some similar experiences to me. I've definitely talked to some parents that have had birth trauma. I think that one's a little bit harder for me to help with because it can trigger my own memories. So I have to be very careful. But as far as like the other stuff, like talking to other people, I've connected with a few in my EDS group that's local, who just got diagnosed and trying to help them figure out things. Also, there's a big correlation between Ehlers-Danlos, dysautonomia, and autism, especially in females. So that's something that I'm hoping in my other venture I'll be able to help more with, but we'll see. I'm not the greatest with teenagers, so I don't know how much I'll be able to help, but I will try my best. My preference is the younger kids. Once hormones kick in, I don't know what to do.
It's not for the weak.
It is not. I know when I feel really so having kids 13 years apart, when the group of young parents, or I guess parents of these young girls that we're in the class with are like, "Oh my goodness, this is so hard. Do they ever grow out of this?" I'm like, "Just wait."
It gets better, guys.
I don't know.
Riza has 2 girls, and her oldest is a boy. He's in college, but the 2 youngest, one is about to turn 15 this year, and then the other one is 13, right?
she'll be 13 in June. So I got
So
2
you feel it. You feel it coming.
in my chest, I feel it.
So, how important is it for women to talk about, and mothers to openly talk about traumas and mental health?
I think it's super important because when I had birth trauma, we were in lockdown. And so I had nobody to talk to, and I just had the internet. And thankfully, there's 2 people on social media that I found that had birth trauma social medias. And so I was at least able to talk to them and find information because I had no clue. Like, I saw birth on the TV, you have a baby. They put that baby on your chest. You have this like golden hour, I think it's called. I don't know. But, and also on TV, you push and the baby comes out. I do remember this part in the OR. They're like, push, we're seeing the head. I'm like, great. And they're like, a few more pushes. And I do a few more pushes. And they're like, we're seeing the head. And I'm like, okay, are we done? I was like, do not tell me a few more pushes until it's actually a few more pushes because I'm tired.
Yeah.
But, like those things. And like, we don't talk about what happens if you have a premature baby. We don't talk about what happens, like in my case, if the placenta doesn't detach. What are they going to do? Like, I wish I had known that that was a thing. I didn't even know that was a thing. So, thankfully, I have a husband that stepped in and took over. Like, at one point, I was like, my husband makes the decisions. I'm done. And so, thankfully, I had that. And thankfully, I had a doctor that tried her best to um, give me my wishes, given that my birth plan could not be followed for medical reasons.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think talking about it is the most important thing because if we don't, nothing gets done in the hospital. You get told what I was told when I filed a formal complaint, and that was that I needed to think about how the nurse felt that threatened me. And I explained that it was not my job coming into the OR thinking about how the nurse felt. I didn't do anything wrong. I came to the hospital because I was in labor and it was the middle of a pandemic. I did nothing wrong. And so I filed the complaints. It unfortunately was covered up in my medical records because I've requested those. I've done everything I can. So at this point, I can just advise parents of what their rights are when they go to the hospital and how to ask for an advocate right away and how to file complaints. But if we don't talk about it, nothing happens. So I went to maternal fetal medicine, and I went to my OBGYN a couple years after my birth. And I said, I want to debrief. So maternal fetal medicine was able to let me know the risk that I would have another premature birth and the potential reason why it happened. My OBGYN, I said, I want some closure. I want to walk through where you guys failed because you guys failed 3 days before I gave birth. You saw me. I was in pain. Nobody did anything.
Mm.
I called one day
Yeah.
before I went into labor because I knew something was wrong and I was told it was normal. That was my baby
He
shower,
was
which
at
Juleka was part
Yes.
of.
That's how she
I was in
drove
Charlotte
to
when my water
Charlotte
broke.
for a baby shower, and she's like, "Hey, by the way, my mucus plug came out." And I was like, and of course, me just had, I think Isaiah was
Yeah.
like, how many,
I think
like months old or a year?
he was like a year because I threw your baby shower for him before I
Yeah.
moved.
So he was like a year old, and I was like, "What are you doing here?" Like I was like, "Mucus plug came out. What are you doing? You need to go to the hospital." She's like, "No," and I'm like, "Well, when mine came out, like I had him the next day. Like you need to go." And she was like, "Well, they said I have time." I'm like, "Yeah, they told me that too, and that didn't happen. Like he was here the next day." And
So
sure
then
enough,
3 a.m. my water broke.
oh
Um,
my goodness.
and nobody so we did the birth classes. They don't tell you what it's like when your water breaks. So I thought my baby was just sitting on my bladder and I was just peeing all the time. I couldn't stop peeing. Even when I called, nobody told me that was when my water broke. They were like, you just need to report to the ER, the closest ER. I said, no.
Good.
And they were like, why not? I said, because I worked in early intervention. I am not reporting to the nearest hospital when I'm at 30 weeks because you're going to be keeping my baby. So they were like, that's against medical advice. I was like, I'm aware. I'm in no pain. I am safe to travel. So we drove at 4 a.m. from Charlotte to Durham. I ate a bunch of cupcakes because that's all I had in the car. That was left over from my baby shower. Because I was like, I know they're going to tell me I can't eat when I get in the hospital. So we drove. I was in the labor and delivery ward for an hour and a half before somebody came and told me, you were in labor. You are not leaving until you have this baby. And I was like, So at that point, I knew I was having a premature baby. I'm freaking out because I know what the next 6 to 10 weeks of our life looks like. My husband's freaking out because he's about to become a dad for the second time, this time biological. And he's like, holy cow, we're having a baby and we don't have any supplies. I'm like, they're not going to send our baby home. We don't have to worry about that. So, and then I have a premature baby. I go onto the recovery floor, whatever, and they're like, well, where's your pumping bra? I'm 30 weeks pregnant, ma'am.
Right.
I don't have any of
This
that. I don't
wasn't
even
this
have,
was
right. Like I have a pump at home. I haven't even read it. I don't know how to use it. I didn't disinfect anything. So they were like, well, you're just going to have to hold it. Come to find out, so anybody listening, if you have a baby, you take those mesh underwear and you cut 2 holes in them
mm,
and it becomes a pumping bra. How many people did I see and nobody offered that as a suggestion? Like they just made me feel bad for not having a pumping bra. But yeah, so it was technically that if I did not give birth that night, my husband would not be able to be at my birth because they were doing the lockdown at the hospital. So my oldest had had the flu 2 weeks prior to me giving birth. I went on Tamiflu preventatively. And when I came to the hospital, I told them that I had been sick. I had had a sinus infection because typically any cold I get a sinus infection right after. I told them I had been on Tamiflu, no problem, no problem, no problem. It wasn't until I was giving birth that they decided I needed to be tested for the flu. What I didn't know, because none of us knew what PCR meant back then, is that they did a PCR flu test and it came back positive because I had had the flu 2 weeks prior, more than likely. And the Tamiflu helped me get through it. So that positive flu test, they prevented me from seeing my baby for 6 days. They said that I could give the flu to other babies. We asked for different flu tests. They said that they wouldn't do any more flu testing. So the comical part about all of it was anybody who entered my room had to be in full PPE when we had the PPE shortages. And so my husband had slept in the room with me that night. They didn't let him see my daughter until he got tested. They wanted him to go down to the ER. He was like, why would I go to where a bunch of sick people
right, to have a
can get
chance of
tested?
getting it.
Can't you just test me here? And they were like, no, you're not a patient on a maternity floor. So he left the hospital and went to urgent care the next day. He got the first available appointment so he wouldn't be exposed by anybody. And he was negative. So he got to see our daughter that next day. So he slept in my room that first night. He was on the couch. I was in the medical bed because he tested negative that next morning on the 16th. If he wanted to come into my room, he had to be in full gear. I was like, he just slept in here the night before. And when I get discharged, we're going home together. Make that make sense. And they were like, that's just our protocol. So I had the stress, unfortunately, of having to try to pump without seeing my child or smelling my child or being with my child for the first week of her life. And then I was so terrified. She was in there for 62 days. So for 62 days, I was terrified that they were going to tell us that they were shutting down the NICU because they warned us that that was always an option. If COVID spiked in our area, they could shut down the NICU. And then at one point, they transferred her from the main hospital to the regional hospital because she just needed additional help breathing. She was having what they call Brady's, where she stops breathing. They transferred her, and I was like, no. And they were like, well, we have to. We're running out of beds for the babies that need them most. And I said, okay, well, how are you transporting her? With the life flight ambulance. And I was like, I need proof that there's been nobody with COVID in that life flight ambulance because I don't want my baby contracting COVID because you transported her. So like I called the ambulance driver. I was like, I need to know, are you sanitizing it? Like, what have you guys done? How have you kept yourself safe? Like, because it's scary. So like
It is.
basically the entire 62 days I was in fight or flight. My husband was in fight or flight. You know, our oldest was at home because school shut down. And it was hell on wheels. And I still don't know why I went through that. I am waiting for God to tell me.
How was your faith tested in these trials? I know you said you were angry, just with a lot of different things that have happened right now, diagnoses. How did you feel when it came to your faith?
It kind of goes back to what I said before of I was like, okay, what did I do wrong? Because it went back to that original thought process of what God is. Like, why am I being punished? Like, what did I do wrong? And it's like, I didn't do anything wrong. This was just something that happened. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that there's times in my life when I've been very anxious or angry or, something bad happens. And honestly, like, I'm like, yeah, I'm mad at you, God. I don't want anything to do with you. Like, leave me alone. Like, I am running to the next city because you just made me mad. And I have a feeling that's where I was at. Again, it's been like 6 years. So a lot has happened in the past 6 years. But I know that we were going through several things at that time. A couple with my oldest, that is her personal business. But it was like, really, is there one more thing that could happen? Like, what else are you gonna throw at me? And I think it's just part of our story. Like, honestly, my husband and I have been married for 7 years, and we just celebrated our 7th anniversary, and this is probably
Congratulations.
the thank you. This is probably the first year that we actually liked each other, not had a period where we didn't like each other, but that's marriage, right? Like, again, we talk about birth trauma, we need to also talk about marriage. It's not perfect. Not every marriage starts with the honeymoon period and goes into another honeymoon period and everybody's lovey-dovey and we just all get along. That is not marriage.
It's not
Like,
real.
there
It's
are
not
trials and
reality.
tribulations in marriage and we need to be okay with that.
Right.
So yeah, I think I was very upset. My husband was very upset. Church was virtual. I do believe that God is going to protect me from that. But if it does, do I think that God failed me? No, I think that he's using it for a different reason. And I do think, like, when Claire was in NICU, like, we knew that, like, I didn't bleed out on the table because of God. Like, Clara survived because of God. Like, and I went back to that pediatrician when my oldest had the flu, and I said, "Thank you for
Mm,
telling me to go get Tamiflu, because had you not, she would have been a 28. And do you know what the outcome is for a 28 weeker? A lot worse than a 30 weeker. So you literally gave me 2 more weeks for my child to grow. Like, I think that's something that I was grateful for. Like, he didn't have to remind me that I needed Tamiflu. Who would have thought to ask, like, a parent that's pregnant, hey, are you on Tamiflu? But
right.
he did. So it's like those little things that I see. And I've seen those throughout my life. Like, even when I've been far from God, if you wanna call it that, like, there's still something.
Mm,
Like, he's always been there, and it's always been, like, one thing, and you look back and you're like, "Oh, wow, my outcome
mhm.
could have been so much worse." Like,
Yeah, I have those moments all the time where I'm like, because I mean,
yeah,
like you said, like, nobody's perfect. My life, I wasn't always, connected
yeah,
to God, but he was always I could see his hand on my life in so many
yes,
different moments protecting me, even when
yeah,
I was ignoring him, even though, like, all those things. So, yeah, like, you could say, like, "Wow," like, "Thank you, God." Like,
yeah.
I know that you were there.
It's just something that's creating you to be someone that is stronger and ready for the next chapter or 2 chapters ahead, and you never know what that's gonna be, so pray your way through it and get some good friends and make it through.
Yes, yes, yes. Have good support system around you, that could pray with you, that could
Yeah.
cry with you, that could just let you vent. And this is
Yep.
what this is, our vent session.
I mean, even when I worked at the CDSA, I took on some of really hard cases and went to some really scary places in Charlotte. I wasn't scared because I was like, "Okay, what's the worst that can happen? God's got this, like, okay." And I yeah, and I think that's what, like it says in James, like, you have to ask and know it's going to happen. So that's kind of why I'm like, I don't need to be cured of EDS because I know that it's not a curable diagnosis. But like, if I'm going to ask, I'm going to believe that it's going to happen. If I'm asking for something, I better 1000% believe that it's going to happen. And I think that's hard. Like, I prayed without ceasing that my child would not have Gorlin syndrome. Do I think that God did that because I prayed so hard? I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe. Like, again, why risk it? I'm gonna go ahead and do it and believe it's gonna happen.
Even if, like you said, like, there are moments of doubt, right? And I think that's just us being honest with God, like, "God, I believe, but just help me in those moments when I doubt, in those moments when, I don't fully put my trust on you."
So, how has this journey, not just your health, but everything, because it seems like you've been through a lot in the past few years. I mean, it's almost
Just a little bit.
yeah. And I mean, I'm sure if you sit down and diagnose everybody's life, there's always like a period that they go through in their life where everything seems to like pile up and like you don't know, you feel like you're drowning or you can't breathe. And it seems like this has been a period of growth for you, like you said. It's a place where you're growing and you're becoming stronger, to carry whatever God is leading you to, whatever, your purpose is unfolding in front of you. So now that you're going through all of this, how would you define strength?
Man, you're asking hard questions. I think the ability to endure something and get through. Like, I think that's depending on other people, depending on God, but being able to say, okay, this is the path that I'm supposed to go down. Let's do it. Good, bad, or ugly. Like, we're going to do it. I used to think, a guy with muscles is strength, but really it's those of us who are moms and juggle all of the children, all of the mental load, whatever words you want to use. Mental load wasn't used 10 years ago, but it is now.
Mhm.
All of the decisions, all of the groceries, all of the pickup, all of the child's emotions, all of the little quips that come home from school. Like, it's always something. And then also survive. So strength looks like taking a break.
Mm,
Strength looks like taking a nap.
yes.
Strength looks like saying, "Hey, husband, partner, friend, I need you to watch my kid for the day.
Yes.
Like,
Mm,
I need to go get my hair done. I need to
yes.
go grab a coffee. I need to go sleep in a bed that's not mine."
Not have mom guilt about it.
Yes, 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 because I am not a good mom if I can't rest.
Mhm.
And I think that, you know, hindsight is 2020. And I joke that like my oldest got the energetic mom and my youngest gets the more aware mom. Like I was going by the string on the coat or whatever the term is, like with my oldest. Like I got thrown into it. She was 4.5 when she moved in with me, 5.5 when she was adopted. Her stuff that she came with was a lot more than somebody who was not prepared to be a mother should have probably had to deal with on her own. I adopted when I was leaving grad school, no income, but it worked. And God put a community in every location that I lived in that helped take care of my daughter. But my knowledge of what being a parent was and how to best serve her was not as good with her as it is with my youngest. And like I have told her over and over again, like I was not a perfect mom and did the best I could. I'm sorry if I messed up because I probably did, you know?
And
And I
that's
was learning.
real and that's honest
Yeah.
because there's no manual and each child, even if it's like you said, like biological, not
Yeah.
like they're different. Even when they both of my children are different and I have to learn as we as every
Yes.
day is learning something new about like, okay, how am I gonna handle this? How am I so yeah, and I mean, I couldn't even imagine like finishing grad school. You were what, like 20
20, 26,
26?
25, 26.
Like, I could not imagine, like, okay, now I'm taking on a 4-year-old and then still, like you said, like, what she came with,
Yeah.
her experiences, but, like, I honestly feel like even in your career path and, like, the way that you support and advocate for others that may not have a voice for themselves or may be scared to speak up for themselves or not know that they can ask questions to the doctors and things like you have helped so many families grow in that way and just even I feel like you were learning, right? You were doing the job and helping others, but then you were
Yes.
also doing it. That
Yes.
was your life experience. So I know that
Yeah.
helped you as well.
Yeah. And in my last job, before I started my own company, I worked in research. And so we were diagnosing children and then having them participate in a research study. And they would laugh that I had to take off my researcher hat and put on my teacher hat because I have my master's in special education because some parents would just break down. It's a lot. Like
It
getting a
is.
new diagnosis is a lot. I remember when my daughter got diagnosed with asthma and I cried. Like, why are you crying? I'm like, because I have asthma. I probably gave it to her. Like, so like that guilt that parents have when they receive a diagnosis and
Right,
like
because
just
we do. A lot of
yeah,
a lot of
sitting
parents,
next to a parent.
like, it's their fault, like, "What did I
Yeah.
do wrong?"
Yeah. And really sitting next to a parent and saying, okay, I get it. Feel your feels, get it all out. Like, express yourself. Now let's go. Like, and that's the strength, right? Like, I'm dealing with grief. I'm dealing with processing this, but I'm going to move forward for my child. And that looks different for me and for you. For you, it might look like, okay, I'm going to start with one therapy because that's all I can handle right now. I can't deal with all these people. Like, I'm still processing what my child just got diagnosed with. For another mom, it might be, we're going to jump in and do everything that we can all at once. And that's okay. And that's one thing that I did in early intervention too, with some of these kids that had complex conditions is like, what does your family need? Start there. Like, what do you and your family need? Because ultimately, that's what's going to help your child best is you and your family.
Mhm.
Start there. Start with what you guys can handle and then work your way out. And so, I mean, honestly, that's what I've done with my own health is like, okay, I can't do therapy every week. Like PT kills me. I don't have time to do those exercises during the week. I have a child. So I do every other week. Would my PT disagree? Yes. Would my doctor disagree? Probably. Do I care? No.
I mean, you
It
gotta
is
do
what
what
works
works
best for
best.
me.
Right.
And the same thing with other things. Like, I don't do all the things I'm supposed to. I guess I'm supposed to be on some Mediterranean diet. I still love cheese. I already have celiac disease. I cannot eat gluten. Do not take away my cheese. I will do somewhat Mediterranean for the anti-inflammatory stuff, but I'm eating cheese, and that's okay.
Yeah, you tweak it for you. You make it work for you.
Yeah.
Right. Baby steps, baby
Yeah.
steps.
To stop coffee, I don't know how many times I've tried to quit coffee, and I always tell Joe, like, I'm like, "I tried, but I'm back. I'm back in
It's
the
coffee.
job." And it's like, you know what? I feel like I'm never gonna let this go, so I'm gonna stop trying to let it go. 'Cause it's just I
Just
love
drink
it.
less. Just drink
Right.
less. If you drink 4
Moderation.
cups of coffee a day, try 3, try 2, try 1,
Yeah,
like moderation. I'm
Right.
getting a hysterectomy in a few weeks, and I'm okay with telling
Oh,
everybody that. My husband was like, "Can I say something at work?" I'm like, "Why? Why is it a secret? I'm getting a hysterectomy. I have a rare disease I do not want to pass on, and
right.
I've had 5 surgeries related
Mm.
to gynecological issues my entire life. I am getting it taken out and I'm saying peace." I got a shirt on Etsy and it's to commemorate it. And it says on the back, "Gone but not forgotten." And year is 2026. It says, "A hysterectomy is a journey of profound loss and liberation. It means saying goodbye to a significant part of oneself while embracing a future free from pain. Honoring the decision is about accepting the loss with grace, cherishing the memories, and acknowledging the courage it took to choose well being." And I
yeah,
think that's important because a lot of people are quiet about women's health. Like,
Mhm.
I have endometriosis. I've had issues my entire life. I have this tumor condition. Like, why do I have to keep enduring pain? Like,
Mm.
why would I choose? Why is that okay? Like, why in our world is it okay for me to continue having pain each month when I don't have to? Right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm done. This is an agreement between my husband and I. Like, we're
exactly.
good. Our family does not look how we thought it would, but this is the reality that we've had. And maybe it'll look
Mhm.
different in a couple of years. Maybe we'll be open to adopting again. I don't know. But this is where we're at. And for my health, he would never want me to have another child. And
Right.
I don't want that. And so why not? So yes,
Yeah.
I am having a hysterectomy. I am very excited about it.
Well, congratulations.
Slightly sad, but also excited.
Right.
You for sharing that, and it's interesting that you say that because not recent I mean, recently, I was because I went through a situation where I didn't know if I was gonna need one or not, and
Yeah.
when because I started looking it up to kill the fear that was trying to take over,
Yeah.
and I realized that it's actually healthier if you get it removed, but nobody tells you that, right? Everybody makes you feel like it's a bad
Yeah.
thing, you're gonna lose, so much, but it's actually healthier for you. Like you live, I think it extends your life and everything like that.
Well, I don't know if I want all that. but yeah, like I've talked to my OBGYN was on board a couple years ago. It took me a couple years to get here because again, like I am
You're still
40. I
young.
didn't know what I want.
Right.
But we've talked through options of what we would have done or what I'm not going to have done and I'm going to leave that to my personal business. But there's pros and cons of different things. You can't find any of that online. Like nobody tells you. So I think it needs to be more, and we go for our annuals and they're like, "Okay, it's been 5 years. Let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, we'll see you in another year." And they don't explain things. So I think, talking about women's health is not weird or gross or taboo. It's what
Mhm.
51% of the population lives with. Like,
Yeah, no, it's definitely needed. We need to share more of these things. Like
yeah,
I feel like I just recently talked to my mom and I was like, "Mom, when did menopause
yeah,
start for you?" Because it's like it's not talked about. So I'm like, I'm trying to learn. So I'm like, okay, so I kind of get an idea like, what am I looking at? Like, when did yours start? So I could kind of see, like, I might be around the same
Yeah, because hot
distinct
flashes.
time. Yes. The night, I'm like, I'm hot all of a sudden, never been hot, like, and I'm
I'm
usually
cold all the time.
right. So it's like so important to talk about these things and share just with our friends, with people. But yeah. Well, I know you love gardening, baking, and coffee. What brings you most peace these days?
I think being able to provide food for my family, so baking bread that's gluten free that everybody likes, and flowers because my daughter is obsessed with being outside. We have fairy gardens everywhere. She
Hmm.
creates them out of random things she finds outside. I did just have a fairy garden tea party for her birthday.
No.
But we just like seeing the flowers and like the butterflies that come, the hummingbirds, the
Mhm.
bees, like when the fuzzy bees go in the flowers and sleep for the night and then you see them come out, like, and she gets excited every day when we go outside. She's like, Mom, there's a new flower that opened. And so
Aw.
like that's something that I don't have to expend a ton of energy for, but that we get to do together. And then finding new food that's gluten free. So I don't have to cook.
Right. Thank you so much for, sharing your experience. This is a strength, right? Being vulnerable, asking for help. We think it's weak, but it's not. It's a
Mhm.
strength. It's a strength when we can admit that we need help. That Thank you for listening to Vent Session. We hope that this blessed you.